Hello, good morning. Running a little late this morning, I suppose. Possibly because of the rain. But also, there's so much going on there in YouTube world. We were subjected yesterday to two various title changes, but the same basic video being shown to us as the viewer here on YouTube. Philippine antics, or as I refer to them as little and large. Tongue-in-cheek, guys, but what a disgraceful way to behave in a public place. Yes, a public place, that's what we are on. When we do videos here in the Philippines or anywhere in the world, and we start to discuss issues that are maybe initially going to be of interest, but turn into what can only be described as a Karen outrage by an American. Sadly, another American, showing just how attitudes are sometimes perceived as being maybe not quite what we really should be displaying when we're living in another country. There's no doubt that when we're on holiday as tourists we must behave in a certain way, but one would expect that when we're living permanently, especially in Angeles City, that we try and present a respectful and refined attitude towards our guests. Or should I say our hosts? We are, after all, the guests. But it is very sad to see the way they behave. But I'm just wondering whether they've used the rather obnoxious behaviour that they displayed yesterday to do a little bit more clickbait, because I noticed that there were half a dozen shorts made out of that video, creating what one might call little messages for us to react to, and for us to maybe respond. But maybe it's all been just a big act for them. I don't think so. I think they're in trouble, just like anybody else here who gets a bit too cocky for their boots. I think, unfortunately, Heidi has got a mouth that has no control, and therefore it does send the wrong message to life here in the Philippines. I mean, why not just call themselves American antics? Why do they have to bring their points into focus as if they are the perfect American and Filipino living together here in the Philippines? What is, in fact, the purpose, the perfect couple? I also saw a video today from Minnesota. Yes, it's our dear friend Geo doing a video on budget. You know that horrible word? My goodness, even with he said he's been here 9 years and he still bases his judgment on, initially I suppose, 3 different types of situations. 1, budget level. Number 2, comfortable level. Number 3, luxurious level. And unfortunately, each of them are somewhat off the mark, because when I say they're somewhat off the mark, they clearly don't reflect the average Filipino or Filipina lifestyle, but they do reflect the attitude of an American, considering that this is the place to come and visit and to retire. The only one thing that he actually, I thought, commented on was that you need at least 3 months to get an idea and a feel of whether you will fit into the environment of the Philippines. I think the only reason 3 months is okay is because it's at least more than 3 weeks, which so many of you guys do. Come here for a few weeks, go back. Say you've been regularly here, you've lived and stayed here many times over the last 3-4 years. No, what you've done is you've flown in, had a good time and flown out again. That's not getting to know the Philippines at all. You know, talking about living in the provinces, talking about living in the Philippines is actually getting your feet dirty. Living as a Filipino does. It doesn't mean you have to be poor. It doesn't mean you have to scratch a meal out each day, as so many do here. It just means that you have to be in a reality mode. Of course you can make perfectly good, wholesome meals from the food that you buy at a market, the wet market or the dry market, whatever you say. You can go to supermarkets and find overseas brands. Sometimes they are actually almost the same price as you pay back home. But more than likely, if they've come from places like Australia, England or America, they're going to be at least 2 or 3 times dearer. But the advantage of being able to buy them is that you have the money to do that. It doesn't mean you want Kellogg's cornflakes every morning. It doesn't mean that as a result of your wish to have food from home is going to make you bankrupt. You just have to have it as a treat, something that you can look forward to occasionally. Oh, I feel like a bit of New Zealand butter. Or I would like some Canadian cheese or American cheese, even European cheese. You can buy that here, and it's a bit like when you used to have the friends over for an evening dinner, and you used to go and buy some olives and some beautiful strawberries or raspberries, whip up some cream and serve it to your guests. It was a treat. After all, you were the guests of a beautiful evening, chatting, laughing, thinking of all the wonderful things you've done together. And nobody would resent you feeling that way. For a Filipino, sometimes it's just simply a case of going to a fast food restaurant. That's their exciting opportunity to splash out. But they won't necessarily go and buy the meal version of a Big Mac or a Jollibee sandwich, as they might call it. They're more likely just to buy the fries and a fancy soda. And that's about readjusting your way of looking at life. Nobody wants to come to another country and starve. Nobody wants to come here and feel that all you've got is dried fish and rice to eat. If you think that way, then you might as well say, let's come here and live on $200 US a month. You can have that exciting lifestyle. In fact, you'll probably live better than most people here in the Philippines do. And I'm talking about the majority of very low income families. But as a foreigner, you will have enough money to live a comfortable life. You will have enough to now and again save for a trip overseas. Now and again be able to travel to an adjoining town or city without any trouble. Maybe hiring a van and a driver. Taking the family, the extended family, for the trip as well. paying for the entry to the various resorts. You'll be able to do all of that, but you'll do it carefully. You do it with a certain amount of frugalness. You won't be saying, let's buy the latest or the most expensive bottle of champagne just to impress your guests. I mean, it doesn't matter what anybody says about budgets, whether you're Uncle Fester in his ivory tower, talking as if he's the world's authority on everything, but reminding us that we should always do our due diligence. Sorry, Uncle Fester, anybody with any common sense would know that. But I suppose it makes for interesting viewing for your fellow Americans who obviously follow you. But if they were to live on your income, I'm sure they wouldn't be worrying. After all, you have 2 properties here in the Philippines. Oh, sorry, did I say you? What I meant was you and your wife have 2 properties, and your wife is the only one that can own the land. And yeah, you have a condominium, which many people encourage people to buy. Bad issue unless you've got Uncle Fester's income, the one that pays the rent every week, every month. Because if you have a condo, you still pay. You might have bought the property and you might have a share in it. I liken it to an Australian timeshare where you might have an 80-year lease and you can come back in your nominated month of the year. You can add to it by buying other people's shares in your own little unit that you own 1/52 of. But remember, you still have to pay the body corporate their fees every month, every year, and the occasional upgrade of the whole building falls on you as one of the owners. Not such a good deal, really, unless you want to live in a postage stamp and pretend you're living in a 5-star hotel. But it might suit Americans because they don't want to give up their lifestyle that they had in America. They believe that they can recreate it over here. Of course they can. When their mother and father dies and leaves them millions of dollars in tax-free benefit, and they suddenly realize, what are we going to do with our lives? Let's go and live in the Philippines. Of course you're going to do that. English people will do the same. But I think they might look at it slightly, just that little bit slightly different from an American who, I'm afraid, sorry guys, I'm not picking on you, really. If you don't like criticism, don't live the life or portray the life that somehow money doesn't matter. You've got so much of it, it doesn't matter. The reality is that many of you have got military pensions. They're not enough to live on totally, but they're also disability pensions, which you're able to take with you. You have benefits whilst you're in America, and in some countries you can get Veteran Affairs benefit, but it's limited. You know, Australia pays what would be considered a much higher pension than that in England. It's about the same in dollar terms in New Zealand, but the dollar is about 3 or 4% less than that of Australia. So it's about the buying power. And therefore, it's going to be a lot less than that of an American pension. Americans have a wonderful situation as long as they're not just relying on Social Security, because Social Security will not give you much more than Social Security anywhere in the world. Most of those who plan to come and have a good lifestyle in the Philippines will, of course, have some savings, some nest egg to bring with them. And it's those that decided to build a home, make a base, make it their last property. They're the ones that will be able to tell you they can live on $500 and $600 American a month, because you can. It's quite simple, you can. But if you're going to be quoting people 200, 400, 600 US dollars a month in accommodation because you were looking for the Florida Keys lifestyle, of course you're going to need more money. And budgets really are just that. They're just a budget, a figure that you're prepared to spend. Expenses are a completely different thing. Expenses to live in the Philippines can be up or down to what you think you're going to be able to live on. If you want a steak every day, you know, steak, I looked at steak and S&R yesterday. What was it? 2 lovely pieces of steak for 3,290 pesos. You know, that's a lot of money. That's what some Filipinos take home if they're lucky for a week's hard labor. But then, if you're American, that's okay. Money, no problem. But if you're a poor Englishman or a poor Australian or Kiwi, money is important, that you hold on to it. You don't throw it around, showing how brazen you can be. That's my thought for the day, as the rain starts to pour down, but luckily I'm under a tree, so I'm hoping that it will disappear in a little while, otherwise I'm going to get a little bit wet on the way home. So I better go before it gets any harder. Bye now.